Part 21. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 201. Chapter 201. I know you have no good intentions. Lisa looked confused. I remember you don't have any family, do you have a boyfriend? Soo-yoon smiled implicitly and did not directly answer her boyfriend's question. Instead, she said, I just have less contact with my family, but it's not that I have no family. For someone as outstanding as Miss Soo, she must have no shortage of boyfriends, Lin Shanjun said with a smile. However, Lisa waved her hand, you don't know, even though we Soo are very good, but our minds are all on our careers. If it weren't for that Luo, what? Frowning, Luo couldn't think of his name for a long time, so he simply skipped the name and said, anyway, if he hadn't been chasing you so hard, I guess you would still be alone now, I'm sorry. Suddenly he remembered what they had already said and stopped quickly. In fact, Lisa didn't know much about Soo-yoon's subsequent events. If it hadn't been for this competition, she would never have had the chance to see her again. She only recently learned about what happened to Soo-yoon. It doesn't matter, Soo-yoon smiled and said disapprovingly, it's all in the past tense. So do you have a boyfriend now? Lisa asked cautiously. Soo-yoon thought for a while and said, I guess so. It's just one step closer than a boyfriend, he is already a husband. Thinking of this title, she secretly laughed in her heart. In fact, she had never called Yao this way until now. If she really did it in front of him, she might still be a little embarrassed to say it out loud. Wow, I never heard you mention it. Next time you have a chance, be sure to introduce me to her. I heard that she has a boyfriend, which means that she may have really let go of the previous things. Lisa is also happy for her, hanging on my heart finally relaxed. Ms. Soo's boyfriend must be very good, Lin Shanjun said with a smile. Yes, Soo-yoon nodded, but did not show any humility for Yao. He is indeed excellent and deserves such praise. Lin Shanjun was a little surprised when he saw that she did not show the usual politeness, and looked at her with a particularly deep look. The meal was quite enjoyable, but just when Soo-yoon was about to stand up and leave, a noisy sound came from the stairs. Let me in, you know who I am. How dare you stop me? It was a woman's voice, which sounded a little familiar. Before Soo-yoon could remember it, the man had already rushed up from the stairs. Lin, you can't let me see my child. It's Helen. I didn't expect that she would find this place, but the people below were probably told not to let her in, so they kept blocking her, but they couldn't stop her from rushing up. Hearing Helen's voice, Lin Nan subconsciously moved his body, but after glancing at his father beside him, he stopped again and sat obediently on the chair without moving. Nanan, my Nanan, Mommy is here to see you, Helen shouted loudly, without caring that this was in a public place. Mr. Lin, I'm sorry, Ms. Helen. A waiter-like person hurried over, wiping his sweat and apologizing. Lin Shanjun wiped the corners of his lips elegantly with a napkin and said calmly, let her come up. Hearing this, the other party breathed a sigh of relief and quickly went over and waved to let her up. After being released, Helen rushed up in 2 or 2 steps, but was stunned when she saw Soo-yoon and Lisa. But it was only for a moment, and she immediately turned her attention to Lin Shanjun. Lin, I won't listen until I go to the hospital. You said you had discharged Nan Nan from the hospital. Why didn't you call me? Do you know how worried I am about him? Now you see, he is fine, you can go, Lin Shanjun said without raising his eyes. Seeing that Helen couldn't speak to him, she looked at the child beside her. Nan Nan, just be okay. You don't know how worried your mother is. She blames herself to death. It's all my fault that you suffered. Are you feeling uncomfortable now? Do you want your mother to accompany you and take care of you? As she said that, she opened her arms and was about to hug the child. Soo-yoon glanced over and saw that when the child faced the hug that her mother was about to rush towards, she didn't respond to it, but subconsciously wanted to avoid it, and her body unconsciously grinned back. "I don't need you to take care of him, just stay away from him," Lin Shanjun said unceremoniously. "Lin, how could you do this? No matter what, I am still the mother of my child. You can't deprive me of my rights as a mother." Lin Shanjun sneered twice. "Really? Do you really want to fulfill your responsibilities as a mother?" "Of course," Helen replied without hesitation. Nodding, Lin Shanjun said, "Okay, then I'll give you this opportunity now." Before Helen, who was overjoyed, rushed over, he continued, "From today on, Nanan belongs to you. I can apply to the court to transfer the custody rights to you. From now on, I will pay you alimony every month. In addition, I will also pay for his schooling until he reaches adulthood, but otherwise, you can't get another point from me. What do you think?" Helen's expression suddenly changed, while Lin Nan on the side nervously grabbed the corner of Lin Shanjian's clothes, lowered his eyes, and looked at the pitiful little face. The child didn't speak from the beginning to the end, but their dispute was centered on the child. He had no right to speak and could only listen silently. This made Soo-yoon feel very distressed. "Lin, you can't do this to me," Helen screamed, "the child needs a complete family, you can't do this." "Did I cause this result?" Lin Shanjun sneered and exposed her mercilessly. "Helen, don't think that others are fools. You and I both know what your plans are. For the sake of the child, I won't argue with you, but if you keep pestering me like this, don't blame me for letting you get nothing. Forrest. While I still have the patience, disappear from here," he said with a cold face, word by word. Facing him, Helen didn't dare to express her anger. She turned her eyes and saw Soo-yoon and Lisa beside her, and said angrily, "Why you? Why are you here? Soo-yoon. I knew you had bad intentions that day. You were deliberately trying to get close to Lin, right?" She was very unhappy with Soo-yoon last time. Lin Shanjun would only criticize and reprimand herself, but he was gentle and kind to this woman. Besides, she is so beautiful, one look at her makes her uneasy. Don't try to take my place. I was the one who gave birth to Nanan after all. Don't waste your efforts. Soo-yoon. Helen. Don't speak so harshly. I have a boyfriend. Today I just want to thank her for saving Nan Nan. If it hadn't been for her last time, Nan Nan would have almost. Lisa stood aside and helped her speak. But before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Helen. "Lisa, shut up, I treat you as a friend, but you join forces with others to bully me. You just introduced her to Lin on purpose, didn't you?" End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 202. Chapter 202 Dependence on her. Apparently, Lisa didn't expect that her cannon fire would hit her body, and she pointed at her nose, shocked and angry, and was speechless for a moment. "Last time, you told me that she was your friend and made me believe her. I believed you. Now you actually take her to dinner with my man and son, but you don't tell me. What do you think you are worried about?" The more Helen talked, the more she felt that this was the case. Lisa was also angry and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, I just didn't have good intentions. I didn't have good intentions to help you take Nan Nan out to have dinner with you. I didn't have good intentions to think that I could help you connect the relationship between mother and son. I didn't have good intentions. If you want to win over you, blame me, blame me. Who made me blind and make a friend like you?" Lisa Soo-yoon called her softly. It wasn't for anything else. The main reason was that their quarrel was really bad for the children. Looking at the little face that almost drooped under the table, the nervous little fingers were clenched together, and the shoulders were shaking slightly, If it weren't for the table, she would have wanted to go over and pick him up and coax him softly. But she didn't expect that her soft call made Lisa think of something else. She took Soo-Yun's hand and said, "Helen, you are right, I just have no good intentions. Not only will I not care about you from now on, I still need to bring Sue and Lin Shanjun together. People like you will never have a chance. You dare." Helen screamed and was about to pounce, but she heard a crisp sound and glass shards scattered around her feet, and she was also splashed a little. Although she was not injured, this sudden change also startled her and she stood there blankly for a moment. Lin Shanjun, who dropped the cup, looked as if nothing had happened, with a cold face. "I say it for the last time, disappear from your eyes, otherwise." Turning his gaze towards her, his gaze became extremely cold and stern. "I will make you disappear forever." Helen shuddered unconsciously, and her face that was still ferocious immediately fell down, and she looked miserable and pitiful. "Lin, don't be like this. Is it okay if I am wrong? Just understand my mother's heart." "You look at Nan Nan." Nan Nan, she looked at the child, but found that the child was nowhere to be seen. The little guy didn't know when he had gotten under the table, with his hands clenched into fists and clamped tightly on both sides of his body. He closed his eyes as if he couldn't see or hear anything. Soo-Yun couldn't care less at this moment. She stood up and walked quickly around the child, squatting down beside him, but said nothing. "Don't touch my son." Seeing Soo-Yun's actions, Helen screamed again. Lin Shanjun said angrily, "Get out." Helen's scream was stuck in her throat. Looking at his face, she didn't dare to say anything more. "Lin, don't be angry, I'll leave right now." She was afraid of Lin Shanjun after all. Even though she was unwilling to do so, she still left. Before leaving, she glared at Soo-Yun fiercely. Of course, Soo-Yun didn't know about her rolling eyes. She was squatting quietly with the child at the moment, focusing all her attention on the child. She didn't reach out to hug him or talk to him. She just squatted with him quietly and slowly moved her feet to touch his little feet. The moment they met, the little guy shrank his feet subconsciously, but she quickly moved closer to him, doing nothing but sticking close to his feet. "Nan." Lin Shanjun bent down and was about to pick him up, but Soo-Yun quickly raised her head and made a silencing gesture to him. Lisa on the other side felt a little strange, but subconsciously she didn't dare to say anything. Both of them watched her actions quietly. After sticking their feet next to each other for a while, the little guy finally responded. He slowly opened his closed eyes and turned his head to look at her. Seeing him looking at her, Soo-Yun curled up her lips and became happy. Seeing her smile, he seemed a little surprised. Lin Nan stared at her for a while, and his tight little face finally relaxed, and there was a hint of smile. That smile was very shallow, as if it would break up if you waved your hand accidentally. Soo-Yun still didn't speak in a hurry, but stretched out a hand towards him. "Put your palms up and your fingers slightly bent, like an invitation." Looking at that kind hand, he hesitated for a while, then carefully, little by little, he put his little hand into her palm. Soo-Yun immediately held his hand and smiled brighter at him. At this time, something unexpected happened to her. Lin Nan suddenly opened his arms and rushed toward her, hugging her neck tightly. She was also surprised by the child's behavior. She just wanted to comfort the child, but she didn't expect that he would be so dependent on her. Hold him gently and stroke his back with one hand to comfort him. She could feel the child's great mental pressure. Lin Shanjun watched the scene silently, with dark eyes flowing. After comforting her for a while, the child's slightly trembling little body gradually calmed down, and the arms holding her were no longer so tight. "Hand him and stand up," but he squatted for too long and his legs were a little weak and he almost couldn't stand. Lin Shanjun helped her up at the right time, then took the child from her arms and said sincerely, "Thank you." Suyun smiled slightly and shook the child's little hand. No matter what, don't make such a fuss in front of the child. It will have a great psychological impact on the child, she said with great feeling. Lin Shanjun nodded, but felt pity. The child likes you very much. If you hadn't gone back, I really hope you could stay with the child for 2 more days. Yes, Su, do you have to go back? Isn't it good to stay here and develop? My father's team is very good. If you stay, you will definitely develop very well. Lisa quickly followed the advice. Lin Shanjun also agreed with Lisa's words. The development prospects here are indeed very good. Miss Su is so talented in the fragrance industry, doesn't she want to seek a better future? Besides, if you encounter any difficulties here, I can also help you. No, she shook her head and refused, insisting, I still prefer the domestic development environment, and I feel that no matter where I am, I can find a path of my own. Having said this, it was hard to persuade her anymore, but the little guy obviously couldn't bear to leave her. Auntie, he called softly, without any unnecessary words, but his eyes were full of reluctance. If you have a chance in the future, ask your father to take you to China to play. Auntie will entertain you, Suyun said warmly, tapping his little face with her finger. Lin Nan turned to look at his father, as if waiting for his answer, while Lin Shanjun nodded, definitely. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 203. Chapter 203 The Big Boss's Woman. The trip in France was finally over. Suyun and Yao took the same flight back to China. Once they returned to China, everything got back on track and they began to work intensely and busy. After all, she is returning with glory. This is not just an honor for Suyun. This is also the largest award that Xinjiang has won since its establishment. This award is of extraordinary significance, and it is equivalent to giving the company a first start in the international market. One shot. From this competition, the foreign perfume industry will know that there is a company called Xinjiang in China, and their company's perfumers won the first place in this tasting competition, defeating people from all over the world. Opponent. The company made elaborate arrangements. As soon as she returned to the company, the salute barrel was opened, and ribbons and colorful cannons were sprayed all over her body. Congratulations to the great hero for returning home with great honors. Standing at the front was Zhao Xin. She had already taken the lead in applauding, and everyone sincerely followed her in applauding to congratulate her. Those who had some prejudices against Suyun before now put aside their prejudices and were impressed by her. After all, I didn't know much about her personality and strength before. Even if she passed the assessment, she was still not convinced. Including this time when the company selected people to compete in France and chose her, some people were not optimistic about it and were even waiting for her. I was watching her joke, but I didn't expect that she not only won the award, but also came first. This was the first time. I heard that the final examiner this time was still the very conceited Mr. Wool, which further proved her strength. Now, no one is unconvinced. Thank you everyone. Suyun was not used to being surrounded by people like this, so she nodded politely and thanked her. Suyun, you performed very well this time and brought honor to the company. Later, the company will focus on commendations and rewards. By the way, come to the office with me. I have something to tell you here, General Manager Wang Shuo said. Mr. Wang, Suyun has just returned from a business trip, and you have to do some work again. Someone defended Suyun. Why don't you let me take a break? Yes, the company has such a big happy event, shouldn't it be celebrated properly? Mr. Wang should express his gratitude. Why don't we treat him to a big dinner tonight? Okay, okay, this proposal immediately received support from many people. Zhao Xian waved his hand, what's good is good, what's good is good. It's Su Yun who wins the prize, and it's Su Yun who takes the glory. What does it have to do with you? I'm so embarrassed to reward you. Although she said this, she was smiling and was obviously joking. Other employees in the company knew that she was a typical talkative person, and they were not put down by her few words. Instead, they shouted, Su Yun brings glory to the company, and we are also contributing to the company. We all perform our duties. Besides, Su Yun is a part of our company, everyone is happy for her, and it's time to celebrate. Okay, I'll treat you to dinner tonight, Wang Shuo said with a smile, but now, let's do whatever we have to do. Next, our tasks will be more arduous, so you must be mentally prepared to accept the challenge. Okay, everyone responded in unison and dispersed to continue their busy work. Wang Shuo glanced at Su Yun and said, Su Yun, come with me. Although he didn't know why Mr. Wang was looking for her, after all, it would definitely not be a bad thing to come back with a great reputation. He patted her on the shoulder and said, go. Come to my place later. I also have something to say I want to tell you. Okay, Su Yun nodded and followed Wang Shuo to the general manager's office. After closing the door, Wang Shuo looked outside and pulled down the blinds. He looked a little mysterious, but he didn't completely block the view outside. Miss Su Yun. Why did this title change so suddenly? I wasn't very clear about the relationship between you and Mr. Si before. If there's something I said that was wrong or something that I didn't do well, please forgive me. He scratched the bridge of his nose and said a little embarrassedly. Su Yun understood now. It seems that although Wang Shuo knew that she was someone assigned by the head office before, he didn't know her relationship with Si Yao. But this time, after the kidnapping incident, it may be hidden. Can't stand it anymore. However, he probably still doesn't know what the relationship between her and Si Yao is. He just knows that there is a relationship between them. Mr. Wang, Mr. Si, and I don't know much about your relationship with him, and I won't ask. Don't worry, I will never reveal it. It's just that in the company, since you can't reveal your identity, sometimes I can't treat you too much care, you know. I hope so, Su Yun nodded and said, I just hope you don't look at me differently or take extra care of me. I'm just an ordinary employee. I can do whatever I want. I'm willing to talk to the new students. Grow together. Wang Shuo stared at her for a while, seeing the sincerity in her eyes, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. This is the best. But, in fact, based on the relationship between you and Si, if you join Huanya directly, why should you come to us as a freshman? Although Xinchen is backed by UniAsia and is also affiliated with UniAsia, it is only a small subsidiary below. In terms of strength, fame, and assets, it is not as strong as UniAsia. Why should she settle in this small company? Mr. Wang, you also know what the situation was like when I first came here. Based on my personal qualifications and the situation at that time, I am very content to stay in the freshman. And although the freshman is not large, here, I feel the atmosphere of struggle and progress, and I believe that the future development of the new students will be very good. Her words made Wang Shuo very happy. Really? Do you really think so? I actually think so too. I think the future development prospects of freshmen must be very good, and the future is limitless. Yes, she nodded affirmatively. Okay, then I'll be relieved. Wang Shuo also breathed a sigh of relief after receiving her answer. Ever since Si Yao called him and asked about Su Yun's news, until now, he has felt a sword hanging in his heart. He never expected that the small employee assigned to him by the superiors would actually be the big boss's employee. Woman. In fact, having such a person under his control makes it very difficult for him to do things. It is not good to arrange too much work, but it is not good to be too light, because he is afraid of confirming the facts, and he has to conceal his identity, and it is impossible not to look at her differently. It is really difficult to control this level. But now it's better. Now that we've talked about it, it's easier to handle. Then you go back. You have worked hard recently and you can take a good rest. I will approve the leave, he said. No need. Since you have nothing to do here, I will go back to my seat first, Soo-yoon said with a smile. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 204. Chapter 204 Soo-yoon, I love you. After coming out of Wang Shuo's place, she went directly to Zhao Xian's office. Zhao Xian was already waiting there, and Wu Arian was also there. There was also an opened bottle of champagne and 3 glasses on the office table, obviously waiting for her to come back to celebrate. Drinking during work hours is not a good thing for you, she shook her head and said with a smile. Who said we were drinking wine? What we were drinking was the water of victory, Zhao Xian corrected her. Quick, quick, close the door first. Hitch closed the office door and pulled down the curtains. The 3 of them felt like thieves in the office. We're going to celebrate after work, why are we in a hurry now? He said this, but he still went over and picked up the wine glass. Everyone was celebrating together tonight, but now we are celebrating for you. It's different, Arian raised her glass and clinked it with her. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you for winning this grand prize. I'm really happy. Especially Arian, she watched with her own eyes how Soo-yoon got to where she is today. I have been with her for so long, and I have learned a lot. I have been learning from her how to make perfume, how to analyze the ingredients of spices, how to extract essential oils, how to do distillation and separation. I have learned countless knowledge, but I have never really mastered it. An honor. Every time she works hard day and night, she gets gratifying results in the end, but she is never the one who wins the prize in the end. Arian asked at that time, why? Are you willing? She always said that being able to continuously surpass oneself and create a more perfect perfume is what should be considered and done. As for those external names, it is not important at all and there is no need to care about it. The person involved didn't take it seriously, and even if she complained about it, she couldn't do anything. She could only endure it and silently accompany her to continue experimenting and making perfume. However, one day, Soo-yoon will be able to stand on the highest podium with her perfume and shine her light. This is a joyful and exciting thing. Even if it is a diamond, it will never be able to hide her brilliance. Thank you, I'm very happy too. Soo-yoon clinked the glasses with her and took a sip of champagne. There was also a small fruit plate on the table. It seemed that Zhao Xian had prepared it a long time ago. She took a sip of wine and asked with concern, by the way, what happened to your kidnapping in France? At that time we can't even contact you, but we're worried. Kidnapping, Arian exclaimed. She didn't know about it yet, so she was very surprised when she heard about it. You don't know, Zhao Xian thought she knew, so she said it casually. I don't know. What kind of kidnapping? How did you get kidnapped? Who kidnapped you? Are you okay? After a series of questions, she put the glass down and looked at Soo-yoon up and down, extremely nervous. Soo-yoon didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I've been following him for many days, and it's already fine. Why didn't you tell me? Arian said angrily, turning to look at Zhao Xian, and you didn't tell me either. I didn't know about the co-authorship. Zhao Xian looked helpless. I only found out later that she was kidnapped. At that time, Mr. Wan called me and asked me if I could contact her. How did I know that this was the case? Didn't I also ask you if I could contact her? You asked, but you didn't say it was a kidnapping. I didn't know it was a kidnapping at the time. Listening to the two people arguing, Soo-yoon made a stop gesture. Okay, kidnapping or not, I am not standing here properly now, nothing will happen to me. Then tell me, what happened? Who kidnapped you, and how did you get okay afterwards? The two people looked at her at the same time, pointing the finger directly at her. Soo-yoon. She roughly told the story of being kidnapped in France, but omitted the part where Sia ran to France to find her, and the part where she and the robbers were described, omitting and describing it lightly. But even so, the faces of the two women turned pale with fright. Oh my God, there are guns. Oh God, internationally wanted criminal. Oh my God, what kind of people have you messed with? The two people were stunned and sighed. Just imagining the scene felt too horrifying. Looking at her seemingly unharmed, it was a miracle. Soo-yoon, are you sure there is nothing wrong with you? If there is anything, you must say it and don't keep it in your heart. Zhao Xian looked at her worriedly and said. Arian on the side also joined in, yes, yes. You must not create a psychological shadow or anything like that. No matter what they did, you must tell them. We are all your best friends and we will definitely help you kept it secret. Soo-yoon was speechless. Why do you expect something to happen to me when I hear this? How can it be? Stop talking nonsense. It was the first time that these two people were so united and said together, of course it's best that you're okay. We're worried about you. By the way, you said that the kidnapper was caught by the police, but was the mastermind caught? Did you say what the purpose was? The mastermind. Soo-yoon thought of Rosen, who was kidnapped, and Zhang Shiwei, who later disappeared from France. In fact, she was not very clear about the follow-up of the case. She only knew that the three kidnappers, plus Rosen, had been arrested by the police. Based on the evidence, their punishment will not be light. Before he could say anything, there was a commotion outside. It was quite loud. Zhao Xian frowned, put down the cup in his hand and walked over to open the door. What are you doing? Even if you are celebrating at night, you have to go to work now. What else do you want to do? I don't want to do it anymore. No, Manager Zhao, look. Zhao Xian then discovered that all the employees were facing the window, and outside the window there were many colorful balloons rising, clustered in piles, which was really beautiful. Hey, where did the balloons come from? She was also surprised, but she was at work after all, so she waved and said, okay, okay, there's nothing good to see, just a few broken balloons. Are the balloons as good as your salary? Get to work quickly. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw a few more balloons rising up. The key is that this time the balloons were tied with long ribbons, and the ribbons had clear big words written on them, Soo-yoon, I love you. Holy shit. Zhao Xian immediately closed the door, turned to Soo-yoon and said, quick. Look out the window. Because the three people were in the room with the doors and windows closed, they didn't pay attention to the window. Zhao Xian went over to open the curtains and happened to see the balloons floating up from outside. More than one of them had ribbons tied to it. Each one had the words, the same words, Soo-yoon, I love you. Soo-yoon. Who stepped on the horse's prank? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 205. Chapter 205 makes me feel relieved just thinking about it. Such an exaggerated and contrived thing could never have been done by Sia. Soo-yoon had no idea at the moment, she only thought whose prank it was. The balloons floated up leisurely, forming a landscape. The little girls felt it was so romantic when they saw it, and they all poked their heads downstairs to see who it was. Look, there's someone there. Yes, yes, it's right downstairs. Ah, did he hold a big bouquet of flowers in his hand? Wow, it's such a big bouquet. Let's see, It's such a big bunch of red roses, there are 99 of them, right? Shouts of exclamation kept coming one after another, and many people had begun to look in the direction of Zhao Xian's office with envious eyes. This is. The three people in the office were also shocked. At first, Arian thought it was the work of President Sida, but when she turned around and looked at Suyun, her face seemed not to be good. Just when she was wondering, she heard people outside shouted that there was someone downstairs, so they stuck their heads in and looked down against the glass window. Originally, the person standing downstairs was a bit far away and could not see clearly. It happened that when she looked down, the other person was also looking up upstairs. Such a look made Wu Arian shocked. Luo Yuan Hang. I never expected that the person releasing balloons to show my love would be him. Subconsciously, he turned his head and glanced at Suyun, and saw that her expression became even more embarrassed. That heartless man, Zhao Xian, actually didn't see it clearly, but when he heard Arian's name, he immediately understood. He let out a light laugh, not without ridicule. What are you doing? He wants to turn around. Arian wrinkled her nose. I think there is some conspiracy. How long has Suyun been with him? In the past few years, he has not even given her a flower, and he has only taken Suyun out to eat a handful of times. Now he is having fun with her? Who knows what he has in mind? Are you going to take a look? Although she thought so in her heart, it was Suyun's private matter after all, so Arian still asked her. Suyun pursed her lips and said nothing, but her attitude was very obvious. Arian immediately said, if you don't want to go down, I will help you send him away. As he said that, he was about to turn around and go downstairs, but Suyun reached out and stopped him. No need. And you? She took out her mobile phone, dialed a number, and said calmly, hello, I want to complain about someone dumping garbage in public places and polluting the ecological environment. Yes, the address is. Wu Arian and Zhao Xian looked at each other and gave her a thumbs up. Downstairs of the building, Luo Yuanhang held a large bouquet of red roses in his arms. He stood there in high spirits, waiting for Suyun. He raised his hand and smoothed his broken hair, which he had carefully taken care of before coming here. He also wore a white suit and trousers, ironed straight, and his whole body was spotless. He vaguely remembered that Suyun said that he liked white. He thinks white is very pure and beautiful, so he specially wears it like this. He can still remember her preferences, and she will definitely be impressed by him. However, after standing for a while, no one came down. Instead, a few people in uniforms came up, walked up to him and saluted first. Hello, were you the one who put up those balloons just now? Luo Yuanhang. Yes, it's me. What's wrong? He didn't understand what these people were doing. Someone has complained that you put polluting garbage in public places and polluted the public environment. Please come back with us to assist in the investigation, the other party said. His eyes widened in disbelief, and Luo Yuanhang was not willing to give in. I just released a few balloons, how could I pollute the environment? Besides, you haven't caught anyone selling balloons on the street all day long. There is no problem with a few balloons, but when the number reaches a certain level and it affects the launch site and causes certain consequences, you have to bear the consequences and responsibilities. Luo Yuanhang was very unconvinced. What consequences did I cause? What impact did I have? Moving his hat, one of them raised his head and glanced upstairs. You have affected other people's work, and someone has complained. Who complained? Who complained about me? Tell me, I want to ask him face to face how it affects his work. Don't touch me, do you know who I am? It was too humiliating to be taken away like this in public, but the more he struggled and cursed, the less favorable the other party felt towards him. Originally, such a matter could be settled with a fine, but since he was so uncooperative, the matter was settled as a matter of course. Luo Yuanhang never expected that such a touching prodigal son's return which he had carefully planned, would end before it even started. He was taken away by environmentalists without even seeing Soo-yun's face. Standing in the office upstairs, watching this farce from a high position, both Zhao Xian and Yan felt particularly refreshed. Sister Yun, you are amazing. I have never seen you have such a method before. You can defeat the enemy calmly and without using a single soldier, Aryan praised repeatedly. Ha ha ha, it really made me laugh to death. Thinking about it makes me feel relieved. In the past, Luo Yuanhang looked cold and condescending, as if everything Su Yun did for him was taken for granted, without any gratitude. Now he wants to trick people into turning around. Where in the world can there be such a good thing? What do you think of a human being? He can come and go as soon as you call him. Boring. Su Yun shook her head and came out with these two words. She didn't know what Luo Yuanhang was doing by making such a fuss, but no matter what the purpose was, such behavior was childish and boring. They made a huge fuss, for fear that people would not know about it, but it was already over between them. Colleagues outside the office were still talking about it. They didn't know that the complaint call was from Su Yun. They only saw the man being taken away by uniformed people, and they felt a little regretful. Okay, just relax and work, it has nothing to do with you. Zhao Xian waved her hand to signal everyone to stop discussing. Turning back and closing the door, Zhao Xian looked at her and said, "It has calmed down now, but there is no guarantee that he won't make some trouble next. Do you plan to never see him again? Let someone take him away again," Aryan snorted. "How many times will it cause trouble? What will the people in the company think? Also, I remember you have a new boyfriend now, right? So what will your boyfriend think if he finds out?" Zhao Xian calm analysis. When she said this, Aryan remembered, yes, that SI. The next words came to an abrupt end, and she did not dare to continue. She just looked at Su Yun and hesitated to speak, thinking that if President Si knew about it, things would be terrible. "I will settle this matter," she said calmly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 206. Chapter 206. I love you, husband. Actually, what Zhao Xian said was right. It was quite annoying to have this matter never ending. She originally thought that this was the end of her relationship with Luo Yuanhang, but he still continued to struggle. She can still understand if competition is digging holes in business, but what does it mean now? The alarm complaint by himself, letting him take him away, it is just a moment of quiet. It is not a big charge. At least a little penalty, the lesson will be released, and then? What if he comes again tomorrow? Are you worried? Yao hugged her waist from behind. He was originally reading a book, but when he saw that she was holding a watering can in her hand, she was watering the same pot of flowers for a long time. Unfortunately, the pot of flowers was almost submerged. But he showed no intention of stopping. Su Yun came back to her senses and saw that the flower pots in front of her were overflowing. He hurriedly stopped what he was doing and was about to water a basin, but he took the watering can from his hand and put it aside. "Okay, don't harm them first." Her hands were empty, and she pursed her lips. "Do you think I'm a disaster? Yao. I can't even laugh or cry, this is nothing. If you are a trouble, I will keep you at home and only bring trouble to me." He held her hand and kissed her, and said softly. This is really the most beautiful love word, and Su Yun was also amused by him. Looking into his eyes, he thought for a while before saying, "I was wondering if we should make our relationship public." "What, have you thought about clearing my name?" He took her hand and turned around to walk into the house, helped her sit down on the sofa, and went to get a clean towel to wipe her hands. He wiped it very carefully, wiping it clean for her one finger at a time. Even though these hands often undergo experiments and are exposed to chemicals, they are well maintained. In addition, she is naturally fair-skinned, and her small hands look like white jade. They are delicate and soft when held in the palm, making people unable to put them down. I hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to say. Is it related to your company's balloons today? He asked casually. Soo-yoon glanced at him in surprise, but it was only for a moment, and she felt that she was making a fuss. Originally, Xinchen was a subsidiary of Huanya. In the final analysis, it was also his company. Furthermore, it was impossible for him not to know that it had caused such a big commotion. He was still hesitating, saying that he wanted to say it but was embarrassed to say it. Sighed and said, I thought I had made it clear, but he doesn't seem to understand. In fact, I don't understand what he wants to do by making such a fuss. It's simple, just make an appointment and ask around and we'll find out. He still looked nonchalant, as if it wasn't a big deal at all. You don't mind? Soo-yoon asked cautiously. After all, he was still his ex after all. Even though he was blind back then, he and Luo Yuanhang had really gotten along with each other. He knew all this, so he wouldn't mind? She asked, and Yao stopped wiping her fingers and raised his eyes to look at her. Do you still like him? There was no jealousy, no questioning, a very calm tone, and a very casual question. Soo-yoon shook her head hurriedly, her head shaking like a rattle. What a joke. After exposing the true identity of that pair of bitches, after being tricked and smeared so many times, if she still likes him, then she really has to dig a hole to bury her brain, and then jump up and be happy. 2 feet stepped on. That's it. Yao smiled, you don't have him in your heart and you don't like him. It's just a meeting with a passerby to talk about things. Why should I mind? If you want to solve it by yourself, I have no objection. If you feel annoyed and don't want to come forward, I can also help you solve it. Throwing the used towel aside, he took her hand and half crouched next to her in front of him. He said gently, you have to know that no matter what you decide, I respect your opinion. Suddenly I felt a little moved and wanted to cry. Soo-yoon flattened her mouth, opened her arms and hugged his neck. Husband, you are so kind. She cried out from the bottom of her heart. She felt that she was so happy to have him. Yao trembled, as if he didn't hear clearly. What did you say? Say it again. You're so kind, she whispered into the crook of his shoulder. Not this sentence, the previous sentence. Say it again. He distanced himself and looked into her eyes. After being married for so long, she never changed her name. She always called him by his first name and surname. Occasionally, she would call him CEO of the company. If she didn't change her name, he wouldn't force it. It was just a title anyway, and he had enough. Wait patiently and wait for her to accept herself bit by bit. I didn't expect that happiness would come so suddenly. The sound just now really made people feel soft in their hearts. Looking into his eyes, Soo-yoon pursed her lips and smiled. Her cheeks turned red but she couldn't say any more. Don't say good things twice. Averting his gaze, she giggled. Finally caught it once, how could Yao let her escape so easily? He held her face in his hands to prevent her from dodge. Obey, say it again. Don't say it. She couldn't turn her face away, her eyes were moving everywhere but not looking at him. I'll kiss you if you don't tell me. Just kiss, it's not like you haven't kissed before. You. He felt helpless with her, as if he could no longer threaten her. Yao sighed, but felt a sudden warmth on his lips. Soo-yoon took the initiative to kiss him and put it on his lips. Although she was not very skilled, she was also learning to take the initiative to kiss him. Yao was stunned for a moment, probably not expecting her to be so proactive. Yao quickly reacted and responded in an anti-customer manner, guiding her to study. She will be a good student. The passionate kiss ended, both of them were panting, and Yao no longer dwelled on the name he just called. Forget it, she has been waiting for so long. Since she is willing to open her mouth, let's just wait a little longer. The days are long. However, Soo-yoon kissed his lips gently, touching the tip of his nose, and looked into his eyes. At such a close distance, she could almost count the number of his eyelashes. She saw sincerity, love, and affection in his eyes. "I love you, husband," she said each word clearly, so that he could hear every word clearly. Yao. Opening his eyes wide, just when he thought he wouldn't hear it again today, another big surprise came to him. Hold her tightly in ecstasy, kissing her over and over again, "I love you too, wife." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 207. Chapter 207. Jump from here. The city's most famous five-star hotel, at the height of the 66th floor, can almost overlook the entire city. To be honest, with Luo Yuanhang's financial resources, he has not come to spend money a few times, and the few times he did it were because of invitations from customers. Today, he was invited here by Soo-yoon, and he was still a little worried. He is actually not sure what Soo-yoon's mentality is now. Is she willing to give him a chance? Does she want to test him, or does she still have resentment towards him? But no matter what it is, after all these years together, as long as he works hard, there is still a chance to save it. He changed into a more formal suit, not the pure white one yesterday, but an off-white one, which made him look a little more gentlemanly. He was already elegant and handsome, but if he dressed up carefully, he would look good on the eyes. He arrived very early, and the seats here are very sensitive to customer privacy. In addition, he didn't know whether he came too early or there were not many customers today. He didn't seem to see anyone else there. But that's okay, he can have a quiet meal with Soo-yoon and create a romantic atmosphere. Yesterday, he had been planning for so long, but several people from the Environmental Protection Department interfered with it. It was really disappointing, and he didn't even see Soo-yoon's face. He must make up for it today. He waited for about an hour, looking at his watch anxiously from time to time, for fear that she might not come and put him off. Just when he was about to call to urge him, he heard the footsteps of high heels. Raising his head suddenly, all Luo Yuanhang's words were choked in his throat. He lost his voice for a moment and was shocked. He has never seen Soo-yoon like this. Her long hair is no longer pulled up, but is naturally loose. Her slightly curly hair hangs casually on her shoulders. The V-neck knitted dress is close to her body and outlines her lines. Perfect, with a beige cashmere coat on top, he could tell at a glance that she was wearing this winter's new models from top international brands. And even such a simple and casual combination could not hide her beauty at all. The pearl earrings and necklace were a set, and the luster made her complexion fairer and translucent. He and Soo-yoon had been together for so many years, but he had never noticed that she was so beautiful. You. He didn't know what to say for a moment. When he saw Soo-yoon reaching out to pull the chair, he realized it. He quickly got up and walked around, bent over and diligently helped her pull the chair, and waved his hand to block it. The waiter took the coat she took off and hung it up behind the chair before returning to her seat. "You look so beautiful today," he couldn't wait to praise. Soo-yoon smiled and said, "Yes, I have never been beautiful before." Luo Yuanhang. Being choked, he said calmly, "I didn't mean that. You were beautiful before, but I didn't pay attention to discover it, and I didn't cherish it. It was my fault before." Soo-yoon raised her eyebrows and looked at him like a clown. Now she got to the point. She thought he would still say a few hypocritical greetings. "Soo-yoon, how are you, Lately, seeing that she didn't say anything to him, he carefully found a topic and asked with seeming concern. Okay, it's pretty good except for the occasional interruption by some flies and mice, everything is pretty good. He waved his hand as if there were flies and mice in front of him. Luo Yuanhang knew that she was referring to him, but he was also mentally prepared to be ridiculed today, but it didn't matter. No matter how she is ridiculed, as long as she is willing to change her mind, it will be fine if she endures this. I know I couldn't forgive you before. I did a lot of wrong things, and I was deceived and hurt you, so I regret it very much. I really want to apologize to you, he said seriously and sincerely. Sincerely, Su Yun sneered, I didn't see it. Luo Yuanhang said hurriedly, then what do you want me to do? Just say it. As long as you say it, I will definitely do it. Really, a slight smile appeared on her lips, and her red lips held a charming smile that could confuse all living beings. Luo Yuanhang was stunned for a moment, but he saw her pointing out the window with her slender fingers, her lips moving up and down. Jump out of here. What, he thought he heard wrongly. Didn't you say that you are sincere? Then I will give you this opportunity, jump from here, and I will forgive you, she said with a half smile. Those eyes were obviously smiling, but they also made people feel cold. It was as if there was an abyss and a cold pool hidden in the bottom of their eyes, and the gaze he looked at was made of ice. I glanced outside. This is the 66th floor. The scenery is really beautiful. But looking down will make people feel dizzy. Jump down? I'm afraid they'll all turn into a pile of meat. Su Yun, stop joking, I sincerely apologize to you. You are like this. He looked embarrassed, obviously unwilling to jump. Don't want to dance? Just say it. What are you saying that you don't mean sincerely? Su Yun teased him. In fact, it was obvious that he couldn't dance, but he didn't even dare to pretend to do it, which really made her despise him. Such a man. Luo Yuanhang's forehead was already sweating. He didn't expect that even before he had a serious and in-depth conversation, he felt like he couldn't go on. He had never realized that she was so sharp-tongued and was being pressed every step of the way. Suffocated. Have you ordered? Su Yun asked casually, raising her eyes to look at him. No. After changing the topic, Luo Yuanhang immediately picked up the topic, put on a smile again and said, waiting for you to order, you can order whatever you want. She waved to the waiter, took the menu, flipped through it and glanced at him. Anything? Are you treating me? I'm treating you, Luo Yuanhang gritted his teeth and said proudly. He knows the price here well. Although it is expensive, it is not completely unaffordable. As long as he can recover her and make her change her mind, with the help of the Chu family, money is not a small problem, so this little blood, he was still willing to give it up. A sarcastic smile appeared on the corner of his lips. How generous. In the past, when she occasionally suggested going out to eat, he always said that it was not clean outside and did not smell like home, so he asked her to cook warm home-cooked meals at home. Now is he so bold? He poked at the menu with his fingers, selected a few signature dishes, and returned the menu without asking what he wanted to eat. Until this moment, she looked directly at Luo Yuanhang. Tell me, what do you want to do after you have been struggling these past 2 days? Hearing these words, Luo Yuanhang immediately became energetic, swallowed to moisten his dry throat, and looked at her with deep affection in his eyes. Su Yun, can we start again? End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 208. Chapter 208. He doesn't deserve it, so do you. Start. Su Yun looked at him mockingly. How to start? Luo Yuanhang felt that there was something in the meaning of her words, so he continued to put on an affectionate look. I know, it was all my fault in the past, my fault, I didn't cherish you properly. As long as if you are still willing to accept me, I will make it up to you well in the future. The more he listened, the funnier he became. Soo-yoon adjusted her sitting position so that she could look at him calmly. Then let me listen. How are you going to compensate me, and what are you going to compensate me for? He didn't realize that she was teasing him at all. He really thought that she was tempted, so he went on to say, as long as you are willing to come back to me and Willan, I will listen to you in everything from now on. I will use all my money to the connections and resources make you the #1 perfumer, not only at the domestic level, but also at the international level. Didn't you say that my skills are unstable and it's best not to show up in front of others, lest I accidentally get attacked by others? He tapped his fingers lightly on the table, returning everything he had said before intact. This. You're not saying that I don't have enough experience. Even if I'm ranked in Sioux City, I won't be ranked nationally, let alone internationally. Why, in just a few months, have I made such great progress? Soo-yoon. Didn't you say that I just need to concentrate on the behind-the-scenes work and the perfume itself, and don't pay too much attention to the reputation outside of me, and don't be too vain as a person? Soo-yoon didn't give him a chance to speak at all. Word by word, they were all words he had mentioned repeatedly in the past few years. Now they all slapped him in the face. I really wanted to ask him, does his face hurt? I don't know if his face hurt or not, but Luo Yuanhang looked quite embarrassed anyway, and he said sarcastically, Xiaoun, what happened before is in the past, let's not mention it, okay? Don't mention it? You don't mention it if you don't want to. You start when you say you will start. Why? She shook off his hand that tried to grab her. Soo-yoon smiled coldly. Why, I didn't even dare to say what I said. Have you admitted it? It's not that I dare not admit it, it's that I know I was wrong. Haven't I already admitted my mistake to you? In the past, I was deceived by Wei, Zhang Shiwei, deceived and beguiled by her, so I did that to you. Now I think when I get up, I feel like a bastard. I'm willing to accept whatever scolding or beating you want. I just ask you to forgive me, okay? Listen, Wei Wei used to be called so affectionately, but now she has become Zhang Shiwei. All the faults are due to Zhang Shiwei's bewitchment. It is true that Zhang Shiwei is not a good person, but Luo Yuanhang is also a complete scumbag. Does the crow laugh at the pig? Soo-yoon, I really regret it, can't you forgive me? Tell me, what do you have to do to forgive me? Just say it. Seeing that Soo-yoon's attitude was very cold, he became a little anxious. She already has this attitude, so why is she still unmoved? Could it be that she has changed her mind? Before coming, Luo Yuanhang conducted a thorough investigation on Soo-yoon, but in fact many secret things could not be found out. For example, the fact that the Chu family was behind her was not mentioned in the information checked by the private detective. But there was one piece of information that he was very worried about, but also very suspicious of, that is, in the information given to him by the private detective, there should be a backer behind Soo-yoon, but that backer was not the Chu family that his mother told him. But, Huanya people. According to the information, she was directly recommended to Xinchen by someone from Huanya, and she was directly recommended to the general manager of Xinchen, so her admission into Xinchen was so smooth, and she was given the best treatment and resources. In fact, he somewhat believed it. After all, she was an unknown newcomer, so why did the new student cover her so much? However, at first he thought she was hooking up with someone from Xinchen, but later he found out that she had connections with the Chu family, so he naturally thought that she was using the connections of the Chu family. But now it seems that it is not the case. The data clearly gives a person's name. He gritted his teeth and planned to open the skylight and speak frankly. Soo-yoon, the reason why you refuse to agree to me is because there is someone else around you. Soo-yoon. Surprise flashed through her eyes. She thought that Luo Yuanhang already knew about Si Yao. Although she had wanted to make it public, she didn't expect that he already knew about it. When did he know it and how did he know it? Seeing the look in her eyes, Luo Yuanhang was even more sure of what he was thinking. It was indeed true. In this way, the content in the information was true. She had really found a supporter. This made him feel very uncomfortable, but after weighing the pros and cons, he still did not intend to give up. I know it was all my fault in the beginning. I forced you to be like that. It is reasonable for you to find someone to rely on. It's just that with his status, he really deserves you. Luo Yuanhang's face was full of disdain, and he obviously didn't take his opponent seriously. Suyun. Looking at him in surprise, he doesn't deserve it, how can you do it? This Luo Yuanhang is too arrogant. Doesn't he think he is better than Si Yao? How could he have the nerve to say this? Of course, he said with a proud and confident face, yes, it seems that my company is not big in scale at present, and it may not look as high as his status, but Suyun, keep your eyes open and see clearly, he looks no matter how decent he is just an assistant. To put it bluntly, he is just a driver or a follower. That is all he will be like for the rest of his life. If he leaves the CEO, he is nothing. But I am different. I am confident that Wilan will be able to do it. Come on, you can see that the current performance momentum is very good, the recent new products are very popular, and the profits will increase several times by the end of the year. We plan to raise funds and go public. Suyun, our future is very bright. If you follow Su Feng, yes, it will bring you a lot of benefits in the short term, but do you think that whether it is a freshman or Huanya, it will really sell his face? What they are selling is Mr. C's face. Once he is fired, it's wise for you to wake up and follow me. He looked like he wanted to shake her awake, but Suyun held her chin in one hand, turned her face to one side and looked out the window, feeling funny and speechless, and she could hardly hold back her laughter. This is all a mistake. Why did Arian misunderstand that Su Feng was his boyfriend at that time, and why does Luo Yuanhang think so now? Su Feng is so innocent, and he was shot for no reason. How helpless she was always being messed with. Luo Yuanhang could only see the side of her face, thinking that she was crying because she was moved by him. Her shoulders were still shrugging, so he said softly, Suyun, come back, I will treat you well yours. By the way, I'm going to change the company's name for you. From now on, Wilan will be called Su, okay? I'll just use your English name, which is both grand and international. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 209. Chapter 209. I already gave him a lot of face. I think it's better to transfer your little shabby company directly to Su Yun's name. You can call it whatever you want, what do you think? A clear male voice sounded, and he walked to their side and sat next to Su Yun. When he came down, he said to her in a warm voice, sorry, I was a little late because I had something to do. Looking at him with wide eyes, Su Yun was surprised that he would appear here. Although he said that if you need help, just ask, but he came without saying a word. Who are you? Why are you eavesdropping? Frowning, Luo Yuanhang impatiently wanted to chase the person away. However, after seeing the other person clearly, he felt familiar, and then suddenly remembered who this was, and his face changed instantly. There was a change. Si, you are Mr. Si. After all, we are in the same industry. With Luo Yuanhang's level, although we have no contact with Si Yao, it is impossible not to know him and have seen him from a distance in some activities. It's just that his status is not yet high enough for him to contact and talk to. In fact, he has thought about asking someone to introduce him, but his strength is really far behind. When it comes to business, Huanya really doesn't look down on Wulan. That little touch. He didn't expect to see him at this time and place, and he was sitting opposite him, with an open hand on the back of Su-yun's chair, naturally showing a very intimate look. This is... Luo Yuanhang's mind went blank, and he was momentarily confused. I heard that you have thoughts about my woman. Si Yao turned his head and looked at him and asked calmly. I. Swallowing hard, Luo Yuanhang couldn't describe the shock in his heart. What did he say? His woman? Who did he say? Su-yun? Su-yun is his woman. Isn't the backer behind Su-yun Su-feng? My head is full of questions, but I can't say a word at this moment, and my body is shaking slightly uncontrollably. I accidentally overheard what you said just now. Mr. Luo is very confident in his career. Oh, by the way, I heard that your company recently launched 2 new products, which are very popular. The performance is indeed good, and not bad. He seemed to be chatting casually, his face was so calm, and he had no idea what he meant. Haha, not bad. Luo Yuanhang laughed twice, and his brain was running rapidly, thinking about how to save the embarrassing situation. So, what does Si Yao's appearance mean now? Are you standing up for Su-yun? Si Yao changed the topic in a leisurely manner. It's just that I heard that your company's 2 new perfumes are both under the name of Miss Zhang Shiwei, right? Being choked, Luo Yuanhang immediately replied, yes, but that's... Originally, it doesn't matter who the author is. What consumers use is the perfume itself, right? After a pause, he continued, it's just that, as a design producer, he is involved in the mastermind of the kidnapping case and is suspected of harboring others. I don't know if the public will accept such a bad perfumer. But one thing is for sure, these 2 works of your company are definitely not eligible to participate in the annual perfume selection competition. It is really a pity. He expressed regret on his lips, but there was no hint of regret in his tone. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was gloating about his misfortune. Su-yun glanced at him in surprise, and was surprised by the information in his words. Zhang Shiwei? The mastermind of the kidnapping case? To shelter and allow others to suck. How come she doesn't know anything about it? She didn't know, and Luo Yuanhang didn't know even more. He only knew that Zhang Shiwei followed Rosen to France, but he didn't know what happened next. Anyway, she climbed up a high branch and stopped contacting him, and he didn't care anymore. Originally, Zhang Shiwei had nothing to do with him, but now these 2 new products are indeed in her name. After all, they had not fallen out at that time, and in addition, she and Rosen had an ambiguous relationship anyway. It can indeed be helpful in the annual competition. Due to various considerations, Luo Yuanhang did not make any changes, but he did not expect to hear such news. What did you say? Wai Wei is the mastermind behind the kidnapping? This is impossible. Although he and Zhang Shiwei are done, he still understands her. Zhang Shiwei is indeed a little cunning, willful and vain, but she will never do anything like kidnapping. What kind of cover is there to allow others to take drugs? Who is being tolerated and who is being protected? When you have time, pay more attention to international news, understand the industry overview, and don't use your mind on things you shouldn't use. Si Yao said sarcastically, as for whether you believe it or not, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just out there. I just want to remind you out of kindness. Are you leaving? This sentence was addressed to Su-yun. He turned his head and his gaze fell on her warmly. Without looking anywhere else, it was as if she was the only one in front of him, and nothing else or anyone else could enter his eyes. Having said this, why does she still need to stay? His arrival is simply more effective than any explanation or rejection. It can be seen from Luo Yuanhang's face that instantly collapsed. What is in his heart? What a big impact it was. Yashi nodded and stood up under his care. He picked up his coat and put it on her, ignoring Luo Yuanhang, who was still sitting there in shock. After taking 2 steps, Si Yao seemed to think of something again and turned around and said, "By the way, remember to settle the bill. No matter what, you have to be sincere when inviting people to dinner, right?" After saying that, he took Suyun in his arms and left without looking back. When he stopped, Suyun thought he was going to do something, but she didn't expect to hear him say such words, and she almost laughed out loud. Si Yao pursed his lips to hold back his laughter until he went downstairs. Si Yao looked at her and said, "You can laugh if you want." The words made her laugh out loud immediately, and she almost burst into tears. "Does my appearance make you so happy?" he asked warmly. "If I had known this, I would have appeared earlier. Or I might consider appearing in front of you a few more times in the future." Suyun shook her head. "I thought you were going to settle the bill just now." After all, with his generous style as a big CEO, this meal is nothing to him. He wants to treat you to dinner. Why do you want me to pay for it? I didn't order 2 more signatures or open a bottle of wine. It's already a shame for him." Si Yao sneered. What he said was indeed correct, but as soon as she thought of Luo Yuanhang's face when he checked out, she couldn't control her smile at all. When it came to punishing people, he was the better one. "By the way, what's going on with Zhang Shiwei? Didn't you say it has nothing to do with you?" She looked at him with an expression that said, "I know it has something to do with you." End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 210. Chapter 210. Look at your potential. It really has nothing to do with me. When he met her disbelieving look, he changed his words. "Okay, I admit that it does have a little relationship with me." He gestured with his fingers, indicating that it was really a very small, insignificant relationship. Suyun will believe him only then there is a ghost. A little bit. Before, he said it had absolutely nothing to do with him, but now it has become a little bit related. "Really a little bit," he affirmed, holding her shoulders with both hands, as if this would deepen her trust. "I just revealed some information to the French police, told them the possibility of being behind the scenes, and threw away some small evidence. The rest was done by the police. The police arrested the person, and they were the ones who detained him. He was imprisoned, and they were the ones who decided the crime. It really had nothing to do with me, really." His eyes were extremely sincere, and he looked sworn in. If you hadn't listened to what he said in full, you would have believed that he had nothing to do with this matter. It really has nothing to do with him. So, the person behind the kidnapping of me is really Zhang Shiwei. She thought about it and found it quite unbelievable. "I never thought that that petite and fragile-looking woman would do such a vicious thing." But Si Yao shrugged. "I'm not sure." "Are you sure you broke the news to the police?" She stared at him in disbelief. "But I am sure that she is indeed harmful to your thoughts. I have let her go twice before in the country, but after 3 things, she has no chance." Well, no matter what, he did it for her. Even if he broke the news, without conclusive evidence, I believe the police would not convict her at will. Maybe she really did something and she didn't know it. "Is my performance impressive today?" He put his arm around her shoulders and asked like a flattering child, asking for credit. Rolled her eyes helplessly, she said, "Awesome. More than just awe-inspiring, it's simply awesome. If it was a TV series, there should really be a BGM for him when he appears. It would be so cool." "Okay. Should I give you some reward?" He moved his face forward, looking very proactive. Suyun pressed a kiss on his cheek gently. "Okay. So stingy." Someone expressed dissatisfaction and took the initiative to ask for the prize. I want this. Speaking, he kissed her lips. After settling the bill, Luo Yuanhang walked out of the hotel in a daze. As soon as he came out, he saw such an exciting scene, and his heart seemed to be stirred up. The woman who was supposed to be following him wholeheartedly and being obedient to him was now smiling sweetly and nestled in the arms of another man, affectionate, but he never had the chance again. What he missed was not just a woman. And the Chu family behind her, as well as the immeasurable wealth and value, made his intestines turn green with regret, but he had no other choice but to stand there with clenched fists. Suyun. I thought about this name fiercely in my heart, full of reluctance. It is late at night, but when the business of Bar Street is just beginning, the lights are bustling, and everyone is losing themselves and looking for themselves here. Luo Yuanhang didn't know how many bottles he had drank. He was so frustrated. His life had never been so gloomy for a moment, and he felt like everything was over. Handsome guy, it's boring to drink alone, come have a drink with me. A hot girl came over and laughed next to him. Raising his eyelids, he couldn't see clearly who was in front of him. He raised his glass in a daze and said, "Okay. Come and drink with me." At this time, someone suddenly strode in front of them, stretched out his hand to pull up the hot girl, and threw her aside regardless of her screams. Luo Yuanhang burped and said, "Who are you riding on the horse? Dare to take care of me?" Before he finished speaking, someone had already grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the bar. "You, who are you, what are you going to do?" Being dragged out of the bar, coupled with the cold wind blowing outside, I shivered, and I immediately sobered up a bit. Although it caused quite a stir, after all, such things are very common in bars and happen a lot every night, so it was just a small commotion, and the noise and revelry just continued. Boom! He was thrown directly into the back seat of a car. The door was closed and he fell in. He was half lying on the seat and almost vomited. "You dare to control me?" Duota poured a glass of cold water directly on his face. In such weather, he was so excited that he opened his eyes completely. "Are you sober?" When he heard this familiar and cold voice, Luo Yuanhang immediately realized who it was, and the car lights turned on, revealing Yao Ying's delicate and proud face. "Mom Wu." All the depression and grievances seemed to be released at this moment. He rushed over, lay on her lap, and cried loudly. Like a child who has been bullied all the time, he finally found someone to support him and he could vent his emotions. This time, Yao Ying did not blame him for not calling her Ms. Yao, she just sighed softly, put a hand on the back of his head, and let him cry. After crying for a while, Luo Yuanhang was probably tired of crying. He sat up straight and raised his arms to wipe his face. Tears and runny nose filled his face. Yao Ying frowned, took a towel from the side and handed it to him. "What? Look." "Yes, I'm sorry." Wiping his face, he gradually regained his sense. "I lost my temper." "You know what's wrong?" Yao Ying snorted lightly, with a disdainful look in her eyes. "Look at your potential." "Mom, I'm done. My company is completely over. What should I do? I've let you down." After wiping his tears, he felt like he couldn't help but shed them again, so he leaned on the backrest and raised his head, not wanting to let himself be like this again. "Just now I cried uncontrollably. Human beings, losing control of their emotions once is enough. Where are you going? It's over. If you give up now, you will really let me down." "But I..." Ignoring him, Yao Ying continued, "Back then, that old man of yours died in the casino and wanted to sell us mother and son. I took you through such hardships. Do you think it will be easy for me to marry into the Yun family? What kind of swords, and intrigues have I not seen in all these years? Is what you are encountering now worth your crying?" These words made Luo Yuanhang feel a little ashamed and speechless for a moment. End of this chapter.